Good day. How are you? Amazing. I am thrilled to announce that we have reached season 8 of Fannytasticlife. This is truly awesome, and I'm excited to share this milestone with you because of all the hard work we've put to make it happen. We have so much going on right now. Our website launched, www.fannytastic.life. It's really exciting. It's relaunched and it's live with fantastic updates. There you find our blog, podcast, merchandise, and streaming content, along with details about our professional services, policies, and pricing. We're also proud to introduce the SMARTZ, a program designed for students in Florida. We plan to expand to other states, but for now, Florida students can enjoy a wealth of free, valuable information. Looking ahead for fall, we're excited to bring you a recorded brunch session that's going to be amazing. There's so much to look forward to, and we can't wait to share it all with you. Feel free to check out our website, YouTube, or any of our social media platforms. Your support means the world to me as a mom, manager, entrepreneur, striving to be self-made. If you like, you can also make a donation to support our efforts. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. Enjoy! Well. Goodness gracious. I must say, modesty, it's not quite for me. I know that sounds funny, and some of you might be thinking, like, what are you talking about? Modesty is not for you. But I have a saying. The only thing I'm not good at is modesty, because I'm great at it. I feel a lot of people who are modest have an amazing quality. And like my husband, he's modest and humble, and he doesn't care if he gets shine or not. And that's his energy, and I respect that, and I love him, and we've been married 22 years. Me, personally, I think that I need to not be modest. I need to say, yeah, I did that. And look, this is what I'm working on, and these are the things that I've achieved. And it's not because I need to be a bragger. It's really a lack of that. It's more about me identifying my value. And I know that might sound crazy, but it's actually kind of real, and it sits home for me. Hold on to that thought, and we'll get right back to this, because I think a lot of you out there may agree. Okay, first things first. This is going to sound kind of crazy, but let's just go for it. I was working at this job, and when I started working there at the time, some of the employees came up to me, and in particular this one gentleman, and he was like, oh my God, I can't believe, you could work here. You sure you're qualified? And I was like a little shocked by that. And then he continued to say, and this is funny, this is not the first time someone did this to me. This was the third time someone did this to me. And I think it had to do with my New York accent, because these incidents didn't happen in New York. They happened in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Florida. But in this particular incident, so I'm talking to the person, and they were like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm qualified. I got the job. And then the second part, they were like, oh, but you're so young. I'm like, oh, okay. And they were like, may I ask, how many kids do you have? And at the time I said 3. And they were like, wow, do they all have the same father? And I was like, excuse me? And then the other questions that flew out of this person's mouth was, do you have a college degree? Like pedigree questions. And I've always had an issue and a struggle with this, because many times people that are quote unquote pompous or assumingly that they have the answers to things of this nature ask questions like this. I don't ask anyone in my world questions like this. Like, I'd never ask someone, hey, are you white? Are you Hispanic? I never do. I don't need to know where you're from in the moment of us working together, being professional. If it comes out in conversation, great. And if you want to discuss your history and your culture, that's amazing. So do I. But I'm not going to put anyone in an awkward situation, especially like, for example, mothers. If you're a mom and you have kids, sometimes you don't want the job to know about that because you're looking to get an extra shift or not be overlooked for something, because People assume, listen, you could be a mom and have one child, and you could be a dad and have one child. 9 out of 10, the job won't overlook you as the father because someone will watch that kid. But as a mom, sometimes it's looked at as, well, who's going to be able to watch your kids? That is a prejudice, I must say. And sometimes the larger culprit of that prejudice is sometimes single women. They're like, you have children. And the insensitivity, however, I have a lot of colleagues that fit that description. And then the moment they had children will come to me and say, oh my God, I don't know how you did it. God bless you. And I would have to sit there in just my reflective moment and not hate on the person at all. Just a reflective moment. And I'm going to explain all this. I'm giving you all the information. I'll explain it. So I said to the gentleman, actually, to be clear, and then the gentleman thought I was 10 years younger than what I was. I must say, I still got it. But anywho, so I said to the gentleman, I'm so sorry. Just to clarify, I'm actually this old. It's none of your business, but all my children have the same father. I've been married for over 20 years. I'm going on my master's. I'm right now working towards my doctorate. And what does it got to do with you? Period. Now, I did address that situation and give that person feedback, but I didn't have to. However, a modest person may have taken that approach. Again, I have never been modest in my life, and there's many reasons why I have never been modest in my life. And I want to just outline them because I feel like the people that are not modest, again, I love people that are modest and humble. It's an amazing attribute. But for the people that are not, something had to happen to them that they have to be like, I did it. And that's who I am. We need to identify with trauma. It's the truth. So let's go over some things. When you want to identify who I am, know that I'm confrontational. It doesn't mean I'm going to punch you in the nose, but I am going to hold you accountable for what you're telling me. Where did you hear that information? Who are your sources? Can I see your sites? I don't think that's a fact. Oh, that is not a fact. Here, let's look at the statute. Let's look at the policy, the regulation. I'm going to take you there. I want you to learn in the moment. I had people who worked under me many years ago that would give me documents, and I would say, before I submit this to leadership or to the vice president or to the president's office, let's look over this document. Now, these people held big positions. I would take out my red pen and I would knock the sucker out of that sheet, and I would say, okay, I need you to go back and rewrite this. And sometimes they would say, can you type it on the computer and I'll rewrite it? And I would say no, because I would handwrite those corrections. They need to learn the mistakes. And I must say, who I always give kudos for that is Dr. Lucille Swaim. She's the one that taught me to handwrite red on corrections because she did it to me so many times. So I would say, and I need you to confirm these facts, look over these documents. I don't think this is a true statement. Is this a quote? Can you confirm this quote? And then bring it back. And then when they would bring it back, I would vet it again and vet it again. And one time, this gentleman, I vetted him like 5 times. And he was like, I'm going to cry. I'm like, well, fix your work. And I'll tell you something, a week or two after that, when he would give me a document, it was beautiful. And I would say, oh, good job. And I would submit it. That's the kind of keen eye that I have. Notice I'm not modest. I'm telling you, I have a keen eye. Why? As a child, I mentioned this so many times, my mom was sick and I couldn't read. I barely could write. I would just do things to be funny and silly, but I really didn't know how to do those things. And it wasn't that no one loved me. It's that my mom was sick and my dad was working and I was a little sister. And my number one job was to keep the house clean. And so that's all I did was clean. That's why I get so mad when I clean. But that's what would happen. And then my grandfather would watch me, and he would watch me with such love and care. And it was the funniest thing because my grandmother worked for Brooklyn College. She held a very high position under the dean. And my grandfather was retired and he would be home with me. And I would be at my grandfather's house every weekend, Friday to Monday. And so one day he noticed, and he was also a teacher, and he noticed I couldn't read or write. And he said, okay, you know what? I know you want to go across the street and play in the park with your sister, but you're not going outside until you read. You have to read for me every morning for 30 minutes. And I was like, oh no. I was so scared that he was going to find out that I couldn't read and write, and I just didn't want anyone to know. So I stood in the table and I couldn't read or write anything. And then he looked at me and he was like, Fanny, can you read and write? And I was like, no, I can't. I really can't. And by this point in time, I must have been around second grade. And I was kind of just skating through and no one noticed. The other thing was, it was in that year right before that everybody found out that I was hard of hearing and that I needed glasses. So I think all these factors really kind of doubled down into this situation. So my grandfather brought out the Wall Street Journal and the Encyclopedia Britannica. And he said, every single day for 30 minutes, you're going to read the Wall Street Journal. Then you're going to read the Encyclopedia Britannica, starting with A. And I was like, he was like, aardvark. That's where we'll start. He's like, and then when we get to Z, we'll know Z. So every single day I had to do an hour reading and writing about it and detailing what I wrote and understanding what I was reading and breaking down sentence structure for an hour. And then I would go play outside. Let me tell you, when I got to zoologist, I was like, grandfather, and I used to call my grandfather or Gramps. And I would say, when I wanted to be scholarly, I would say, grandfather, zoologist, fine, that, ... I was looking at the stock market, grandfather, and I think that your investment, maybe you'll ... So my grandfather did. He empowered me. He really did. Because I was a little ghetto girl. And guess what? I'm a ghetto woman now. However, now I'm educated. And it is in that moment, I said, oh my God, I got to own my achievements. I got to own what I do. And I said, I want to enter the storytelling contest. He was like, let's do it. Let's pick a book. Let's go. Let's go to the library. We would go to the library so many times. I finished reading my book. Excellent. Let's move to the next one. This is the point of why I don't like to be modest. I want you to know about my blood, sweat, and tears in school. I want you to be aware about my business knowledge. I want you to be available to understand my subject matter expert and how it fits your needs. But I can't if you don't allow it. The funny thing is, sometimes you gotta know to tone it down, right? Because you can't walk in being like, I did this and I did that, and you'll go right the door. What I learned to do is sometimes when I'm in meetings, even if I'm equipped with all the knowledge, I won't say anything. Because the other part I learned is observation. That is a big factor. I love to observe situations. I don't ever want to tell my boss about a problem. I always want to come to my boss with a solution, a resolution, a recommendation. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, well, why did you mention that? I feel there may be a need. What do you think? I want to identify the next steps rather than dwell on the situation at hand. Because if no one else sees it, and now I bring it up, sometimes that's not always fragrant. Sometimes people are offended and it becomes an odor. Nobody wants to be told about everything they do wrong or their flaws, although they may not know, they may not be aware. They themselves may be newly promoted. One time I worked at this amazing store, and at the time I was just a sales register lead, and my manager, who was a funny guy, and if he ever listens to this, he will know exactly that I'm talking about him. Well, he would come up every single day and say something or do something, and I realized, okay, I don't think he knows about this. He's very knowledgeable here, but he doesn't know about this. So one day he was talking to me in such a demeanor that I said to him, you know what? I don't walk on flowers. I water them. He was like, I don't walk on flowers. What is that supposed to mean? And I said, maybe you should consider thinking about that before you speak to the staff. And he was just kind of taken aback, again, my manager. And I was just ringing up clients. And then the next day or the next day after, he came back to me and he was like, do you think I have some type of tone? I'm like, do you feel like you have a tone? I wanted him to reflect. I wasn't going to say, hey, the way you're talking to people is offending them, and that's why when you work, nobody listens to you. I didn't want to say that. It took a couple of years. I didn't see him for a while, and then I re-saw him again years later, and there was a mutual respect. And I saw the way he spoke to the employees at that point was lovely. And I said, oh, okay, we both matured. And I was able to respect and say, very good. At the time, I was maybe 17 or 18 years old. Like, who the heck was I? But again, I was raised a certain way. Now, why do I speak about modesty? Well, sometimes there's an it's okay factor. Sometimes you need to not be modest if you're trying to build confidence, inspire others. Maybe you're establishing your credibility, like I mentioned, or creating opportunities, partnerships, collaborations, ventures. You need to speak about the things that you own. Although I embrace how other people feel and their individual differences. I do, because everyone should be who they are. But what about in business? Does modesty matter in business? I think that when it comes to business, modesty can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, modesty is often viewed as a virtue, reflecting humility, respect, and a grounded nature, kind of. But on the other hand, in a competitive business environment, being overly modest can sometimes hold you back from achieving full potential. Let's dive in deep into why modesty may or may not be important in business. In the case of business, building trust and respect is maybe one of the outlying most important things you can do. And modest leaders often earn the trust and respect of their teams and clients. It's their humility that makes them approachable, relatable, fostering strong, positive relationships. Encouraging team collaboration also, because modest individuals are more likely to credit their team for their successes. A learning growth, a modest attitude often correlates with a willingness to learn and grow. And avoiding overconfidence. You see, I can be very modest, but I could be very not modest, but there's a level of overconfidence. Like you could take on the world. Sometimes you can, and you got to pull back. Overconfidence can really prevent and hold you, and the modesty can help with the pitfalls of overconfidence. Now, the case against modesty in business is visibility and recognition. At times, you may work and do an amazing job, but you may not be getting the credit for the work that you're doing. In the business world, it's crucial to be visible and recognized for the work and achievements that you do. And you know what? Sometimes you need to not be modest to establish your authority and say, these are my rules of engagement. I need you to understand. And that's sometimes hard for people to understand because you don't want to speak on it. Now, your own ambition. Sometimes a modest energy can dampen that ambition energy because you want to hit goals. Some people don't. I want to do this job, and that's the job I want to do. Some people want to continuously do other things. Myself, I always like to have a job, things that I'm working on, but my drive is to really inspire others, to motivate, to have my hands getting dirty in the community. What can I serve? How can I help? What can I learn? Maybe to work in every industry. I've worked in so many different types. And that also weighs against me. And then your personal branding. Your personal brand is a reflection of your professional identity. Being unmodest about your accomplishments helps build a strong personal brand that can truly open doors to new ventures and collaborations. Right now, I'm working on a collaboration where I'm helping a business, and this is something that I pull under my consulting hat. And, I love it. Sometimes there's no time for me to constantly do contract work, but I kind of squeeze it in because it's a passion of mine. And then, of course, what's the balance in between it both? How can we strike the right chord? While modesty has its place, the key is to find a balance that works for you and your business, right? Like acknowledging achievements, give credit where it's due, communicate your values, stay grounded, and then always tailor the approach. Know who your audience is. Who are you speaking to? Do they understand your approach? In the realm of business, modesty is a nuanced quality. It can build trust, foster collaboration, and encourage growth, but it can also limit visibility and recognition if not balanced correctly. Embrace your achievements, communicate your value, and strike a balance that allows you to thrive while maintaining humility, right? Remember, it's okay to be proud of what you accomplished. Use it as a tool to propel your business and your personal growth, as I always say. It's okay. Embrace who you are. Celebrate your achievements and use them as stepping stones to further your successes. Right? Well, thank you so much for taking this journey and understanding why modesty is not for me. What about you? Are you modest or not? Either way, I'm sure you're amazing. Have a blessed and beautiful day.